Okay, Leet code question number 20. Valid parentheses. Given a string S containing just the characters of these brackets, determine if the input string is valid. And an input string is valid if it's of the same type, it's of the correct order, and every opening bracket is closed by its corresponding closing bracket. To break it down, they're going to give us a string full of these brackets, and we want to see if the string is a proper string or if it's a proper bracket string or whatever they want us to get. And it's proper if every opening bracket has a closing bracket and every opening bracket has a closing bracket of the same type, and it's in the correct order. So for example, this opening bracket has a closing bracket, it's of the same type, so that's true. Same with all of these. Every opening bracket has a closing bracket of the same type, so that's true. This has an opening bracket and a closing bracket, but the closing bracket is of the wrong type, so it's false. So there are some things we have to take note of. So let's go into my notes here. So we have to take note let's say that they do have an opening and a closing bracket, and so let's say we have opening and closing brackets. But let's say it's in the wrong order. Oops. So something like that. So this is gonna translate as false. We have an opening bracket and a closing bracket, however it's in the wrong order. So one of the questions here is, how do we determine if the string is in the correct order? I am not vimming today. Okay, the second thing we have to notice if there's nested brackets. So for example, we have something like this. And this is going to evaluate as true, not false. So now we have to take note. So all of these opening brackets has a corresponding closing bracket. However, this closing bracket is 1, 2, 3 indexes away, and this closing bracket is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 closing brackets away. So how do we deal with nested brackets? Okay, so let's go to our solution here, or our code. So the very first thing that I thought of, actually let's go back to here, is we have to somehow connect the opening bracket with its closing bracket. So connect opening bracket with closing bracket. So how do we do this? So to connect the opening bracket with closing bracket, we can use a dictionary. So let's have a dictionary called brackets. And in that dictionary, we're gonna just correlate opening bracket and closing brackets. I'm like tired today. Okay. So now we have a correlation between opening brackets and closing brackets. Now what do you have to do? So let's make a for loop. So for car in S. So now we're gonna loop through every single character in the string that we have. So we're gonna loop through each of these characters, and we're gonna check to see if our bracket or if the character is one of our opening brackets. So is the character an opening bracket? How do we check this? We can use the in operator to check to see if the character is in brackets. So we can say if character in brackets. So what the in operator will do is to check if the character or char is a key within brackets. So it'll check the keys. It won't check the values. It'll check the keys. And if you notice here, all our keys are opening brackets. So is the character an opening bracket? That's basically what it's asking. If the character is an opening bracket, then we have to somehow save the value of its closing bracket. So we'll have to save something that says, oh, we need to find its closing bracket now. So what we can do is let's put a list called scene, and we'll have to save the closing brackets. So if we find an opening bracket, we'll have to save the closing bracket. So, or we'll have to tell our program, okay, we have to find this type of closing bracket. So what we can do is scene.append. Maybe scene is not the best word for it. Maybe we can say need to find. So that's what we need to find. Need to find. And we'll need to find the closing bracket of the of whatever that we have there. So if the character is in bracket, then we can access the value or get the closing bracket by accessing the value of its opening bracket. So accessing the value of the opening bracket. So bracket car or bracket char. So now we're gonna put the closing bracket inside of our need to find list. This is brackets. Okay, so otherwise, so let's say the character isn't an opening bracket. So if it's not an opening bracket, that means it's a closing bracket, right? So now we have to check to see if it's a closing bracket that we want to find. So what we can do is actually, so there's two different types of list methods that we can use. We can use the .pop method, which will pop the last appended item out of the list, or shift. I think it was shift. I'm not sure. Shift is in the front. What we want to do is find the last appended one, because that's the most recent one. And if we use pop, then we can find the correct order, or we can use it to determine the correct order. So something like this. How to determine if the string is in the correct order? We can use .pop to take the last element of the need to find, because that is the most recent one, or the most recent closing bracket that we need to find, and that'll actually help with the nested ones too. So let's say that we find this guy. Okay, so this guy is in our brackets. So then it goes next to this one. It's like, okay, so this guy's in our brackets as well. So it doesn't hit the elif yet, and then after that we hit this one. So this is the most recent one. So actually let's so our need to find list. So in the beginning it's gonna find this guy. So it's gonna be like this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy. So this is the brackets that are gonna be our list from the middle. So when it hits this, it's going to be index 0, index 1, index 2. Now it's going to hit this one. So what is the closing bracket what is the most recent closing bracket? It's this one. So if we just pop this out, so we're going to pop this out, and okay, so that's the one that we need to find, is a popped out one. Now it's the next one. Pop out the next element. So that will keep the order. And then this last one is this one. So yeah, that will keep the order. And if we keep on popping out, and then we just have an empty list at the end. So if we do the same thing over here, need to find is equal to this list. If we start from the beginning, it's going to be this guy, this guy. Okay, so this guy, this guy. If it's not in the correct order, then .pop method won't work. So so we find these two, and then it goes to the next one. So we need to compare to see if this is equal to the .pop, right? The closing bracket. But the closing bracket is a square bracket. Like, how genius is that? To use the .pop method to find to use it as the correct order. Like, okay. Anyways, so now I'm gonna say otherwise if the need to find .pop method. So we're gonna pop out the need to find the most recent bracket that we need to find, if is equal to the character that we have. So if need to find .pop is equal to the character that we need to have, then we continue. And if it's none of these characters, so if it's not one of our opening brackets, and it's not the closing bracket that we need, then we just return false. It's a done deal. And if we can go through everything if we can go through everything without any falses, then it's just true at the end. And obviously there's multiple different ways to do this, but this is the one that I like to or that I like to think through. It's for me it's easier to think through. Okay, so let's test this out. So key test .py. So false and true. So this is false, and that makes sense because it is not ordered. And this is true, and this is nested. So two of our hardest kind of ordeals we kind of went through. However, there is a bug to this. There is a bug to this code. So let's say that we have something like, let's say we have a closing bracket just out of nowhere, a closing bracket. So that's a traceback because we have a closing bracket, but we're at the end of the list because we didn't populate it because we didn't find any opening bracket for it. So what do we need to do here? We need to say and need to find. So if need to find dot pop is equal to character, and need to find, so and the list isn't empty, then we can continue going. So now it's false. And okay, so that works. So now let's just check it again. And that is false. So actually what's happening here is we're popping first. It's checking the pop first. I think this is what we call lazy evaluation, or yeah. So we need to utilize something called lazy evaluation. I think that's what it's called. So basically what's happening is, oh no, it's not lazy evaluation. Well, anyways, what's happening is it's popping first, and then it's doing need to find. So it's a left to right. So actually, what we need to do is check to see if this is first. We have to check the need to if there's something in the brackets first. Because if we pop first, then it's always going to be blank after. So then this is always going to return false. If that makes sense. So let's try that. Yeah. Okay. And if we do something like this. That's false, and let's do something like that, and that is true. So that is not supposed to be true. So let me think about this. Okay, so what we can do is, instead of just returning true at the end, we could say return if the need to find is empty, not need to find. So return if need to find is empty. If need to find is empty, that means that there's nothing in there anymore, and therefore this will return false, but this will return true, and this will also return false. Okay, nice. Okay, yeah. So we return if the list is empty, because if the list is empty, that means that and this whole entire for loop has ran. That means that everything was okay. However, if there's still something in the list, that means we just had like extra opening brackets for some reason. So yeah, that's the valid parentheses question for Leet code.